So we are going to talk about statistical mechanics. The main objective of statistical mechanics is to predict the bulk properties of a macroscopic system from the knowledge of the behavior of the particles constituting the system. The particles could be either atoms or molecules or any other constituting particles. The description of a state of a many particle system is given by stating how the particles are distributed in various allowed microstates. And depending upon the nature of the particles, three kinds of statistics or distribution functions or laws are used to understand the properties of the system. What are those three statistics or distribution functions? Number one is Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics or distribution function. Second one is Bose-Einstein statistics or distribution function. And the third one is Fermi-Dirac statistics or distribution function. So we use these three kinds of statistics or distribution function to understand that how the particles of the system are distributed or arranged among various energy levels as well as among various energy states or quantum states associated with each energy level. And then we predict the behavior of the system or the properties, or we can say the bulk properties of the system, such as pressure, volume, temperature, energy, and so on and so forth. So the statistical mechanics I have divided into four parts. Part one, the objective is to determine the possible distribution of particles, which is n, among the various energy levels epsilon I, and quantum or energy states associated with each energy level using MB statistics, Bose-Einstein statistics, and Fermi-Dirac statistics, depending upon the nature of the particles. The particles could be classical or boson or fermion. So this is the objective of part one. In part two, we will move from these three statistics to three distribution functions. That means from BE statistics to BE distribution, from FD statistics to FD distribution, or from MB statistics to MB distribution function. And we'll also find out the partition function of a system. In part three, we'll talk about the various applications of three distribution functions, that is FD distribution, BE distribution, and MB distribution functions. And in part four, we'll talk about some other topics, relevant topics, such as phase rule or Gibbs phase rule, first order transition, second order transition, and so on and so forth. So in today's lecture, our objectives are to know the fundamental difference between classical thermodynamics and statistical mechanics or statistical thermodynamics. What is phase space, macrostate or macroscopic state, and microstates associated with each macrostate, a brief idea, and then a very brief idea of Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, Fermi-Dirac statistics, and Bose-Einstein statistics to determine those macrostates and number of microstates associated with each macrostate. In order to find out the number of macrostates and number of microstates associated with each macrostate, using these three statistics, we need to know the energy levels and the energy or quantum states associated with each energy level. So the fundamental differences: classical thermodynamics deals with the macroscopic or bulk properties of matter, such as pressure, volume, temperature, and it tries to find out the relationship between these bulk properties of matter, such as PV equal to nRT or Charles law, Boyle's law, and such relation. The entire formulation can be developed without the knowledge that the system consists of atoms and molecules. So we do not pay any attention to the atoms or molecules of the system. So nothing is examined at the atomic or molecular level. However, in statistical mechanics, we explain those thermodynamic or bulk properties from the classical or quantum mechanical behavior of large congregation of particles. And again, it does not treat the behavior of any individual atom or particle. It treats the aggregation of atoms. So we have a system, say gas system, composed of n particles. So statistical mechanics deals with these n particles, not with the individual particle. For example, what is happening to the particle number 1 or particle number 2 or particle number 3. Statistical mechanics does not talk about that. It treats the entire system, the aggregation of particles. In classical thermodynamics, we do not treat the aggregation of atoms. We just find out the bulk properties of the system and try to find out or establish the relation among those bulk properties. So the very basic thing of statistical mechanics is phase space. So what is phase space? So in this figure A, we are showing that a particle, a bead you can say, is moving freely or sliding freely along x-axis. So it is moving along x-axis on a stretched string. So the position of the bead at any time is given by x, which is again function of time, and the velocity or momentum. So as the time goes by, the particle moves from one state to another state, and therefore it traces a trajectory. Now, imagine a hypothetical or conceptual space with x and px as orthogonal axes. So we have x and px. So this space is known as phase space. And the state of the particle or the bit at any instant can be represented by the point P. So we have again two coordinates. One is position coordinate x and one is momentum coordinate px, and using these two coordinates we can specify the state of the particle at any instant of time, and this point is known as phase point or representative point. So as the particle moves with time t, it will take different values of x and px, and therefore will trace a trajectory in that phase space. So you can see from this animation that particle P is moving, and at each and every point the state is specified by position coordinate and the corresponding momentum coordinate, and finally we get a trajectory of the particle in the phase space. So in statistical mechanics we talk about phase space of a particle which has coordinate axis and momentum axis. Now, instead of using x-axis or y-axis or z-axis and corresponding momentum such as px, py or pz, we can generalize the coordinate. So we are using q as a generalized coordinate and the corresponding generalized momentum is p. So when we talk about generalized coordinate, this q could be x, y, z, or spherical polar coordinates r, theta, phi, or cylindrical coordinates rho, phi, z, or any other coordinate system. So depending on the situation, we can use rectangular coordinate system or a spherical coordinate system or cylindrical coordinate system. That's what we use q to represent any coordinate system, and that's why q is known as generalized coordinate system, generalized coordinate axis, and the p is the corresponding generalized momentum. So in three-dimensional case, the particle would have three coordinate axes x, y, z. Therefore, it will have three position coordinates and three momentum coordinates. So if the position of the particle is specified by x, y, z, then the corresponding momentum will be px, py, and pz. Or in terms of generalized coordinate, we can say q1, q2, and q3. These are the position coordinates, and p1, p2, and p3 are the corresponding generalized momentum coordinates. So we need 6 coordinates to specify the state of the particle. This phase space of this particle is known as mu space. Mu stands for a particle or a molecule. So each point in this 6-dimensional space represents the state of the particle. And as the time passes by, the particle will move from one state to another state, and therefore we trace a trajectory in the phase space. So that trajectory is shown through this animation. Now, if we have a system of n particles, so each particle will have its own trajectory and will have its own state. That state will be represented by x, y, z, three coordinate axes, and px, py, pz, that is three momentum axis. So therefore, for a n particle system, we have n points, each for each particle, and each point will have 6 coordinates, 3 momentum and 3 position. But we are talking about individual particles position and momentum. Okay, so we can have mu space for a n particle system. Now consider a 6 n dimensional space. So we have 3 n rectangular axis and 3 n corresponding momentum. x11, x21, x31 are the 3 coordinates of a particle 1, and so on and so forth. And x1n, x2n, x3n are the position coordinates of nth particle. Similarly, p11, p21, p31 are the corresponding momentum of particle number 1, and so on and so forth for other particles. For the nth particle, it is p1n, p2n, and p3n. So we have all the particles considered here. Instead of writing x, p, we can write q, generalized coordinate, q11, q21, q31, and so on and so forth, and corresponding momentum, p11, p21, and so on and so forth. So now we have a 6 n dimensional space where we have 3 coordinates are for axis and 3 n coordinates are for moment. So this 6 n dimensional phase space of the n particle system is known as gamma space, where gamma stands for gas. Now, since we have n particles, so those n particles can be represented by a single particle. That single particle is known as phase point or representative point in the gamma space of the entire system. So in mu space for n particle system, we are talking individually the position coordinates and momentum coordinates of those particles. Here we are using a single representative point or phase point to represent the entire space, entire particle system in gamma space, and we observe the behavior of that phase point or representative point of that n particle system in the gamma space. So instead of dealing with the individual particles, we are now only dealing with one point, which is the phase point or representative point of the entire system, and it traces a trajectory as time goes by. In this picture, we have shown P within third bracket and Q also within third bracket. So that means Q stands for 3n special coordinates. You see 3n special coordinates. And P stands for 3n momentum coordinates. That means we have 6 n dimensional space and we are using only a single point which is our phase point or representative point, to describe the state of motion of the entire system. And as time passes by, this phase point changes its position and momentum and traces a trajectory in the gamma space. Here is an example. So the problem is, consider a one-dimensional harmonic oscillator of mass m with total energy E. Let Q and P denote the instantaneous position and momentum of the particle. So the total energy of the oscillator is given by P square by twice m plus half m omega square q square. That is our total energy of the system, the harmonic oscillator, and omega is the frequency of the oscillator. This equation can be written in the form of ellipse. So we have this equation from here, q square by twice e divided by m dot omega square plus p square by twice me is equal to 1. So here we are using p and q, which are the coordinates in our phase space, and we can write it in terms of a ellipse, which is basically x square by a square plus y square by b square equal to 1. Here x is replaced by q and p is momentum. So the a is given by square root of 2e by m omega square, which is our semi-major axis, and b is given by a square root of twice me, which is our semi-minor axis. The area of the ellipse is given by pi times a times b. Therefore, putting the values of a and b, we find out that area is given by twice pi times e by omega. Now, according to the quantum mechanics, the energy of an oscillator is given by n plus half h cross omega, where n is the integer number, n equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So putting the value of E into the expression of area, we get A is equal to n plus half 2 pi h cross, that is n plus half h, because h cross is the reduced Planck constant, which is equal to h by 2 pi. Therefore h, so h cross is equal to h by 2 pi. Therefore h is equal to 2 pi h cross. Now, if we talk about the successive ellipse, so for a particular value of n, we have area of an ellipse. So if we go from n equal to 0 to n equal to 1, or n equal to 1 to n equal to 2, we would have different energies as well as different areas. So the area between two successive ellipses. So here we have ellipse for one value of n and ellipse for another value of n. So we take the difference of areas and we see that delta A is equal to h, which is our Planck's constant, which is a fixed